But now it's time to look at the other characters who had to react to the strangeness of the situation. Which ones were not only funny, but just better put together. Let's start with the dad. Bill Andrews is a fairly generic businessman father, although I did notice that they changed his occupation slightly for the movie. In the book, he's an account executive with a progressive client making environment-friendly materials. In the movie, he's in public relations and has no specific client. They do that a lot, actually. A lot of the more liberal references in the book are really downplayed in the movie. Probably in an attempt to make it more family-friendly. Probably. Anyway, there's nothing terribly outstanding about him. The movie Bill Andrews is played by John Astin, who turns the character into a complete ass. Completely taking his beautiful and dutiful wife for granted, giving her a ton of stuff to do in a very short amount of time, and just in general being a complete jackass without even being aware that he's being a complete jackass. I mean, look at the smile he gets on his face when Annabelle accidentally calls him daddy. What a pig! And yet, in true Disney fashion, you can't help but find him kind of lovable. I mean, yeah, he's a pig, but it's not like he's trying to be. He really honestly does love his wife. He's just one of these people who believes that everything has its place and her place is in the kitchen. In fact, feminism is probably the one liberal issue that this movie does play up quite a bit, which was admittedly quite a stretch for Disney films at the time. Ben, Annabelle's little brother, is barely even afforded a description in the book because of how disgusted Annabelle is with him. But that is a brilliant description of the character in and of itself, and the relationship between Annabelle and Ben is really, really done well in the book. Especially the point in the story where Annabelle realizes just how much Ben loves her despite the fact that she is absolutely horrible to him. The relationship is done well in the movie too, and is actually one of the more subtle scenes of the film. Sadly though, the development of this character is somewhat limited to the acting ability of the kid playing him, which is, well, not good. Mrs. Schmaus, the cranky cleaning lady, is played really well in the movie, but again, aspects of her character from the book are definitely downplayed. The movie Mrs. Schmaus is basically just cranky and judgmental, but the book Mrs. Schmaus is actually a complete bigot. Like one of those people that you would see picketing the school that decided to integrate. And so you can see why not just the kids, but the adults absolutely hate her. And you can especially see why Mom really doesn't mind so much when Annabelle fires her. And finally, there's Boris, the neighbor boy that Annabelle has a crush on. And I'm just gonna be perfectly honest, I never liked the Boris in the movie. The Boris of the book is kind of awkward and goofy, but he's very charming for how young he is. He's competent in taking care of himself and his mother, and just in general, he's a much nicer guy. The Boris in the movie had the awkward and goofy part down, but I never got any feeling of charm or competence from him. He was just, well, honestly, I found him kind of annoying. I don't honestly see why Annabelle is so attracted to him. There is absolutely nothing magnetic about this character. Plus, the actor never did quite get the allergy voice thing down. The idea is that when Boris is with his mother, he has these horrible allergies that distort his voice, and yet when he's not with his mother, the allergies miraculously disappear. If only it were that easy, folks. The book portrayed this by replacing all of the M's with B's whenever he was with his mother and having normal dialogue whenever he wasn't. Simple but effective. The movie, well, I could never detect any difference. Even when he says his allergies are completely gone, his voice sounds exactly the same to me. Okay, well, I can't really argue with any of that. The movie has a few other characters that don't appear much, if at all, in the book, but they're all pretty generic and not all that memorable. That is, except for the hockey coaches. These women are absolutely hilarious in how gung-ho they are about this game. The book, however, also has a character that makes no appearance in the movie, and it's for this reason that I'm falling on the book side in this category. In the parent-teacher conference scene, Annabelle, in the guise of her mother, meets with her school principal and her English teacher about how unmotivated she's become. But in the book, there is one other character in that meeting. Dr. Artunian, the school psychologist, a young, attractive, and outspoken young woman who is trying to get to the bottom of Annabelle's lack of motivation. Why was this character cut from the movie? I don't know, but it seems odd to me that a movie that was trying to dabble in the beginnings of feminism would cut such an obvious and fine example of female empowerment. So even though she's only in the story for a short time, her complete omission from the movie is enough to give the book the point. But now, which story had the best descriptions and the best imagination? Here's imagery. Alright, I will say this right off the bat. Yes, this film was made in the 70s, and yes, it shows. Boy, does it show. I mean, good grief, just look at this effect that they use when they switch bodies. Wow. Now the movie does actually have some pretty imaginative visual stuff towards the end, but you don't get to see it until the final chase scene, and to be honest, it's mostly just there for laughs rather than forwarding the story. The book has a bit of a 70s tint to it as well, but that's more on the subject matter. The story was written amidst widespread disillusionment with the government, and there were a lot of contentious issues being discussed, including the war in Vietnam, abortion, gay rights, feminism, lots and lots of issues that were being discussed, and often very angrily discussed. In addition, younger people were getting more and more involved in politics. Annabelle in the book is a very outspoken liberal, and the family in general seems to be fairly progressive. The book really plays up the generation gap, not just between Annabelle and her mother, but between kids in general and adults in general. The movie, as we've mentioned before, really does downplay the political aspects of this story. We see feminism leanings, but even those seem to be about 1 or 2 decades behind. It's very much a Disney family-friendly film, which means it's there to make you feel good and not present you with anything that might make you the least bit uncomfortable. The problem with that is that it doesn't feel like it takes place in the 70s. It just feels like it was made in the 70s. Now, to the movie's credit, it does portray the main characters really pretty well, especially the father. And it does a great job of presenting the atmosphere of chaos, not just in the house, but also in the school. At times it's over the top, but for the most part it's pretty realistic. Overall though, the movie's intent was to make us laugh, and most of the direction is used to that end. But the book makes us laugh too, and it does so while also eliciting an emotional response with the subject matter, and so for that reason, it gets the point.